try to be straightforward, but it's not. It's really like a leaf on the wind. Huh? And also another point which I was thinking about in this process of preparing the lecture today was I'm namely in the same room where I was last year, or maybe different level, but I don't remember. But I think it's the same. But as some of you know, last year I had a broken arm. And I really have a perception of this event totally different than the last year, because I was concentrated on my pain in my bone, because it was very fresh wound when I came here in Охрид. So I have totally different path of behaving and communicating and walking through the same city, through the same room, through the same, and that communication was also different. So this is also some kind of my own research, my own behaviorology. Should I sing? Say no.
You can sing Macedonia for
Sakura. Sakura, cherry blossom. And this is a view from my favorite restaurant on Охрид Lake. Till now, maybe you will show me some more beautiful, but this is my favorite. But I forgot the place. What's the name of the place? It is beneath the cave. You mentioned that you're going on Thursday there. Radošta, yes. Thank you. You should invite me more often, then I remember more. I forgot from year to year. Yeah, I hope so. So this is the view to another restaurant. Or maybe this is not a restaurant, but privatization of the lake, which is beautiful. This canopy is very tiny and nice. And you'll see the example afterwards. Maybe I had some inspiration here to make also something in other part of Balkans. Some people in Croatia don't like Croatia in the Balkans. I don't mind. I hope so. So this is a view to another. Maybe this is not the restaurant, but privatization of the lake, which is different. It's very tiny and nice. We'll see the example afterwards. Maybe you'll get some. No. I introduce myself. No problem. Thank you. So good evening. Tonight, after all these things, what I was thinking about how could I participate with this theme of behaviorology. I decided, as usual, to present myself first. But maybe this movie is going to work. Yes. So I'm part of the office Predavање Rogina architects, which consists mostly of Predavање Kрешимир Rogina. We consider ourselves as a general practicing architect, doing different kinds of projects, all kinds of typologies, and we won 6 times some prizes in competition in Japan, so that's our connection to Japan and our friends, and also 3 times we exhibited at the Venice exhibition, and we got different prizes, etc. This was a short overview of our office for those who don't know, because we are not so famous as our guests here. And tonight I'm going to show you our latest project as architect that is not dealing with building as construction, it's dealing with some kind of preparation for building. We want some kind of some prizes and competition in Japan, so there are specifications and guidelines for what should be done, and also 3 times, which was very thrilling, and I like it very much, because I'm a little bit sick of this building stuff, I must admit. It's not because we are made for part of the program of the European Union, which is called HERA. And HERA is dealing with tourism of the Adriatic heritage, and HERA is the association of building construction. It's some kind of trans-border cooperation of different, not countries, but regions of countries around the Adriatic coast, which you can see on this side. I like that very much, because that side I'm a little bit sick of the yellow stuff. This area, and not all the regions are involved. But Croatia is very active part of the program. It's the idea of this association is that tourism is not 3S anymore. Or should not be 3S anymore. Here is association and SAM. But tourism for kind of 21st century should be somewhere else, especially not dealing with the cultural heritage regions, very interesting, and important. So we were addressed by a region of Istria coast, which you can see this, which is part of Croatia, still that side, most developed part of Croatia, which is this area, called not all, they call themselves a region, not county, very active, which is interesting. All others are counties, but the idea of this region is that, okay, we were addressed them, and we were one of the experts who are dealing with different topics, connected to the cultural heritage. Some are dealing with the cultural roots, which are very important, especially so because people don't come to some place and they go to bath and think and so eat. We were addressed, they want to see different cultural items at the same part of the education, etc. and some other things. So we are, as architects, we are called addressed, so they deal with some specifications and guidelines for county. Here are trademark visitor centers in development. All others are counties, but we also said region. What is that? But, okay, at the beginning we were so addressed by them, and we did that job with our joint joined practice cultural heritage. Is accidentally got the same dress as for here. We decided to go and set up to some because we are not think and so eat dealing with this branding and visual communications and the project media so much so that they help us in that second some other things. So we start with as architects with a very simple question addressed here to deal with as you can ask ourselves. Here are trademark visitor centers with what Охрид. We also said hobby. What is that future? At the beginning. So what these professors are asking just with our, you should ask yourself, join us, very, very simple question to start with. So we start with a very simple question, what are at the same address as the visitor centers in the first place? And because we are not, are there tourist information centers, educations and communications and interactive media, so much issues that they helped us in that segment here. So we start with experience emphasizers, some kind of incubators. You can help yourselves, just tell like what. So that the questions to be, you know, to find the typology which are professors dealing with. This typology obviously is not clear as a modern simple questions to start with. So we start with something, some very simple question, what is our center? So we said to ourselves, especially what is the first place in our digital age. What are there tourist information difference and abbreviations? You remember this stations diagram which we introduced in talking in 1990 shop, which is very important for us. That this experience emphasized, we call it some kind of indicators for storytelling, totally different to previous storytelling. So we hear that, we see here some difference, you know, we are dealing find before typology, which we are dealing with. This typology obviously it's not clear as the modernistic typology. What is some difference, something different. There is a mechanical age and classic. We say to ourselves, but especially what the visitor center is in our digital age here, not which is set of speciality previously. If you remember this, we have hands, let's say, with what we saw, which we introduced in talking in 1990, which is very important to us. We added this center, digital age, we call it, etc. Electronic age, enclosure, disclosure, volume, listeners, series. We see here some differences that we bring or deal with before media. And also very important to reflect to our issues of interconnectivity, simultaneity, different crossover, mechanical overlapping. Classically are not architecture, which is living the era of clear here, the pictures, but every step of speciality overlapped. So digital, we have interconnected through what we saw yes here, which is the first diagram Yoshi presented, first visualization here, the internet center review are done by the magazine Wired in 1990, explosion, volume, flatness, series. So we said our definition of the visitor center is electronic media, etc. And also they are all very important issues, part interconnectivity, simultaneity, crossover, part overlapping. We are not, and they are supervising the era of a clear sensation, experience, everything is overlapped, crossover, and interconnected through this diagram here. This is the first diagram, which is first visualization of that area, and the stations done by the magazine Wired in the 1990s, back in changing groups. Why changing groups? Because so we said, see, our definition of diagram is the center is centers. This no one will in one go the same path between this. They are part of centers because every mention sentence is part of whatever response space is part of the level, is part of the shop, their own. And they are supermarkets of information, sensation and experience at the same time, abilities and imagination of. And also he wants to do that these facilities that should be built, so this area should be stations in continuous facilities to change sense, changing routes. Why changing routes? Because you see these stations spots that we address each of these group, go the same path between these processes, because we said every architectural designs for her these are not badges, mystic shoes, her own vision. One universal model was designed to fit every foot, but quite the opposite. Shoes which are formed in this specific imagination of what he wanted to do, approach to the modernist type of design where so considering the shape was modeled for everyone facilities, but we said they should address every station with every visitor center should address each of this group. They made individuals, some kind of prototype for local groups and designing architectural shows address. These are not badges. Shoes, like any persons, where one universal model was designed to fit every foot, but quite the opposite. Shoes which are formed in accordance to the sensibilities of your interest in a particular area. A totally different approach to the modernist type of design, where some kind of universal shape was modeled for everyone. In spite of that, the facility architecture they should address everything over-designed. And our friends from the design, they made some kind of prototype for local. They conceive device. They should be which could address useful every person, neutral, individual, as if they were always so. You can find out what event you want, what is the point of your interest in a particular area with this type of device. Was the slide that made the revolution. Talking about design, our presentation, we thought that these facilities should be noticeable and recognizable, but not over-designed. Because as we know, the design expands rapidly and starts to annoy people quite soon. We consider that they should be more like, say, very easily functional, more useful, at the same time it's most neutral. And especially they're always there, like a natural phenomenon, focusing on the content and event, less an expression of design. Visitor center of Rimini should be in Rimini. It's a yes, indeed, but some that was a slide here that made the revolution. Our project, our presentation in Rimini, in Italy, when we said that these stations could be everywhere, we water in the air, when we said that every operating wages. Ferry could be an active visitor center, very easily transformed into the visitor center, and especially these balloons over Istria, the new building. Guy from Rimini said, no. Visitor center of Rimini should be in Rimini. He said, yes, indeed, but some could be also in the air and we want the water small, medium, large. So we found our project like some kind of crossword puzzle, because we made finally we made a book of this specification, also guidelines. Here 58 pages of incorporated into the existing guidelines. Was that much? Talking about where they should be positioned, how they should be utilized. So the most important is it a new building preservation, or is it settled in some building which existed? Is the visitor centers could be, of course, small, medium, large. Here we proposed what should be in them. So if they are certain we have different type tourism today and certain size to address, and also if they are incorporated into the existing buildings, the importance is kind of interest and heritage or preservation of the buildings in which they are set. Who are they for? Next very important question is who are there as Unit 4? Such a topic. Here we come to behaviorology. So we could see that we have different types of tourists today, and that we have to address, I should say, more important, because there is no tourism without a tourist package, which contains also some kind of buildings with them. So you can see different types of interest and people who we are dealing with. And we will see the question out there, but who are they for? Yeah? So again, so very important in dealing with such topics is that we are not only dealing with the tourists, but also with the local community. Local community is as important as the tourists, or even I should say more important, because there is no tourism without the local community. There is no tourism, modern tourism, without storytelling which goes through the people who are living on the spot, not only by the architecture or monuments itself. Monuments don't speak. Monuments are that. So if we don't have people who will deal with this heritage, there will be no quality tourism. And sometimes, or usually, we have the problem that local people are not connected with the heritage properly, or they don't know what they have. So education of the local people is very, very important. So local community could be easily segregated to see like children, generation Y and seniors, but cultural tourists could be domestic and international, but their motivation is very important. The motivation of these people are very important, and their motivations are different. So we should address different kind of people with different kind of interests. This is old question. Next question: what do visitor center capture? So what is cultural heritage itself? So here you can see the three most important classical heritage items of Croatian culture. On the left hand is a chessboard from one church in Island Kirk, and on the other side is the so-called Baška plate, also from the Island Kirk, where you see the nice connection between Macedonia and Croatia. Namely, this is old Croatian Glagolic letters, which were invented by Kirill and Method, of course. Yes, before Cyrillic. And above that is Pleta, which is kind of ornament, traditional Croatian ornament. So cultural heritage should be interpreted in different ways, not only by the storytelling, but architecture and design could also tell a story about heritage. So you can see our we call it Croatian wall, let's say, which was made upon this partially in the early 90s, long ago, and which is kind of interpretation of cultural heritage, but also we can see the multiculturality and transculturality of the whole story, because the same patterns we could find like this. We could find also in Japanese tradition, but not carved in stone, but maybe in kimono patterns, which are not same, but some things are similar. So this kind of interpretation could be more universal, and we also interpret not the traditional culture, but also modern culture, like one of the most famous Croatian painters, Julia Knifer. So this is another interpretation of the same thing that we did in mid-90s, destroyed recently. God, thanks God. So how these people, that's important question for you to ask also. How these people feel like when being somewhere, when facing your design, when facing your addressing to them. So are they occupied by fun and joy and gamification, which is the most important thing. Things are very expendable, gadgets and media. So we should think about renewal and regeneration of things. And also to play with things to be very important. Not only to address people with some disorders and to develop some kind of complex simplicity and also for this visitor centers, the issues of renewal, regeneration, and restructuring is very important, because today we not only technologies, but approaches to our projects in one room, left-hand side on the visual means, and the other room by audio-technical means, like a console which you can address with your hands, and then it puts some music which was composed to describe our works. So these people that you can see here at the opening of the exhibition in Zagreb was not blind, but is there. So, also, we said that if we got preserved monuments and putting the facility of visitor center in it, which could be very usual, and which is one of the most predictable scenarios, we said that then multimedia should prevail. than some kind of architectural interventions. So it could be done by digital means completely. So you have a visitor center which is done by information themselves, like this. This is a project, this is our project from the beginning of 2000, architecture in the digital era, where the environment is developed by information themselves. And here is our first success in Shinkenchiku competitions in Japan back in 1984, where we made, it was a style for the year 2001, where we made some kind of new typology of the new palace upon the idea of transformation of how do you do that? Of the Diocletian palace into the city of Split, which occurred during the time. So like rebuilding or destruction, which could be a creative act. What I wanted to show you here, that the city of Split never recognized that as some kind of thing that could advertise the city of Split. It was the first prize on the international competition. But we had an opportunity to make some exhibition in the basement of the Diocletian Palace, and we are showing here how in the first-class monument you could intervene by architecture, but not touching the structure itself, like it was some kind of baldachin, illuminating baldachin in some corridor in the. So also visitor centers, if you have monuments which are don't have this high class preservation, you can make architecture as a plug-in, as we did here in this block bar in Zagreb. So it's just a plug-in into the old structure. Old is old and new is new. You immediately see what is old and what is new. So it is a cubicle which is plugged into this old building. So you can see from the inside how it works. It's a bar, and the space is floating around this cubicle. And in some areas we predicted that some areas could be the areas where visitor center should be done, but the areas where the classical type of building is not allowed at all, like national parks or something like that. So we said that visitor centers could be some kind of shelters or canopies or kiosks. So, and we are showing here our one of the newest projects of the one bar in Groznan in Istria, in Croatia. So that's a funny story. That's behaviorology. There are two funny guys who got this spot of land just in front of the walls of the old city, medieval city, and it was a York field, old York field, before, and not in use anymore. So they got it to make some kind of temporary park there, and they did that. And unfortunately, there was some conference which was attended by the main conservator of the Ministry of Culture of Croatia, who said, "What the fuck is that? You should turn it down and close it." So they said, "Oh, wait, could we do something else?" And he said, yes, you should ask some architect to do some proper thing here. And they invited us to so we made that instead of this. And recently I got the photos from down there, and they opened it, so this looks like this now, yeah. And I'm quite satisfied with this. So it could be, let's say, kind of visitor center that is not permanent, but is like some kind of canopy and things like that. Huh? Or it should be some kind of interpolation, like this project of ours, also for Shinkenjiku competition. It's around data home, like some kind of facility which is projecting to the outside what is the purpose of the thing. Not only the inner space is making a story for visitors, but it outside can also be the facade could also be some kind of interface in between the facility and the people who are attracted by it. And we find out that actually our project in Tokamachi is a perfect example of some kind of landmark visitor center. So Tokamachi is in Niigata Prefecture in Japan, and this was because the attractions, I forgot to say, the attractions could be different types. So you could have a particular monument, like some Roman amphitheater, or so you have an attraction by itself, but maybe this attraction should be reinforced by some kind of visitor center or some other thing. But in some cases you can invent the attraction. So here only what was there in Tokamachi was this field and this stone here. And the local guy who is chief of a local football association, who you see is not very satisfied with the project of the clubhouse that he got. What's interesting with this field? This field is called Croatian field, and it was done in 2002 when Croatian national team was participating World Cup, and their camp was in Tokamachi, and they were playing some not the games, but they were preparing here on this field. It's a near hotel. So, but during the time, the idea was to make some kind of center which will be some kind of pocket of Croatia and Japan, some kind of Japan-Croatia friendship house. Not only the clubhouse for these changing rooms and for the field itself, but to have wider impact. So we did the project, and we find also similarities between, or we find our general idea in this idea of the focal point of the friendship of the two countries. So on one side it's a Japanese lantern, on the other side it's a Croatian lighthouse. So we called it the lighthouse, lantern lighthouse of the friendship. That was our name of the facility, final facility. So that's it. That's it. And we reprogrammed the facility in a way that, as I told you, it's not only changing rooms for the sports events and other things, but also some kind of a small cultural center for the local community, which is very important, and also some kind of exhibition of Croatia in Japan. So this is the building itself, which is in the landscape and could and should be an attraction for itself. So this is the lantern itself, a multifunctional pavilion for different purposes, attached to the clubhouse building, and this was the opening of it. And how people behaved around it at that moment, and the facility is working very well. So you see it here in wider, here, in wider context of it's a little bit outside of the town itself, and this is the field. Here some flowers, flower fields, the hotel, golf terrains, etc., etc. So these were major architectural issues that come out from our research on visitor centers. So we come out with anticipatory design, which is very important, that you as architects should anticipate things which could happen in your designs. Time scale, which you should always add to the measurements of physical scale. Beneficial change, that these facilities that you design should change through time, through different demands, interpretative planning process, diversification, multisensoriality, as we saw, and anthropological approach, which is kind of behaviorology we are talking here. And how do we promote this? So this was done by our friends. So the branding of the destination is very important. As I said, educating the locals, who are the best promoters of every heritage. Strong messages to the audiences that you know, the target groups, as we call them. Building of circle of some kind of Adriatic insiders. Lasting impact through experiential marketing. So experience is today the most important thing that you bring from the destination. You bring the experience. You bring more than some souvenir, more than some other thing. Yeah. And that story continued through all the channels, through digital, through physical channels, and the most important thing, that heritage is a living and vibrant element of life. That heritage is not dead. That heritage is not something that you observe, but that something that you experience. So our final remark was that Hera Trademark Visitor Center should be new lighthouses of the Adriatic. So that's the end of the first part. Now, a little bit of advertisement. We come to the small hill town of Gruzhnjan. Istria, you see, it's quite small. It's on the hill, on some hill nearby the Italian border in Istria, And for a long time here is the center of musical youth of Croatia and Yugoslavia, and also the international center of the musical youth. So every year we have 26 years now of heritage of our summer school that we organized there. So this is an invitation for this year, and I cordially invite you to that event, which has root, as I said, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when Cedric Rice was there. You can see him with now very well-known professors and architects. Left one is Mikhail from London, and the right one is Gregory Cohen from Australia. So the Groznian spirit was developed through Cedric heritage. You see here Nigel Whiteley, who was a long-time professor there. Atelier Beauvau, of course, was there, etc., etc. So even Cedric Rice made one of his famous projects on the spot in Groznan. He won some prize on the Shinkechiku competition in 1990 for this project, and it was published in Samantha Harrington's book on the front page of her book, and was exhibited at Venice Biennale by her as well in 2010. And so I hope that other professors will do not the same thing, but to finally to implement something in that area. So I'm really working on that. So you can see also the behaviorology of Groznan, and some professors like Takahara Tezuka are tackling football with the local children in front of the church, or some professors are making meals for 20 or 30 people with very, very good result. So I would like to invite you cordially to come to join us from 1st to 10th of August this year with the theme of spirits and the workshop theme of the bottle of Groznan. You can discuss it with me in a more casual way 2 days, because I go back on Thursday. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, remarks, please. Yes, please. You want this?
No, thank you. Yes, I'm very interested in to make a connection between locals and the tourists. For the tourist, what is the name of the tourist, the visitor center? Because the locals is you said a very nice word. The monument it doesn't speak, and we need people who talk about stories about the monuments and also the life in that place. And then locals should be part of this program. And so, but you said the locals they don't know where they are living and what they have. Sometimes. And you also said we, for the visitor center, we need to teach them to speak about the place. And we call this kind of role of locals interpreter. And how do you promote this program to make locals as interpreter in your project?
The issue is that visitor centers should be places equally for locals and for tourists. So visitor centers should be some kind of community centers where locals meet and exchange their ideas about the heritage, their own heritage. So they interpreted, there are some kind of interpretative centers for the heritage both ways.
So in order to let the locals gather in this visitor center as a kind of community space, I think it's important to introduce some sort of a program to learn about their place and how to speak about their places. And I
there is
think
another group who is dealing with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
with the educational program. With the educational program which goes to the locals.
I see.
But through the workshops, not like like lectures or something like that, like a school, but more like some kind of workshops, some kind of discussions or something like that.
But
Gamification of the role of ex cathedra, explanation of what they should say to if some people approach them, what they should say or act.
In the project we worked on in the Kitamoto Station Square. I think Momoyo is going to show tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes. We in order to design the new square in front of the station, we invite locals as a kind of very important human resource who really practice their own public space by themselves, rather than with a program provided the city authorities. And then in order to encourage the citizens and people living there to talk about the future program of appropriating this new public space in front of the station, we invite them to be as a kind of lecturer. And then, so we invite many different NGO groups and or the circles who is working and who is enjoying their own hobbies or who is taking care of the forest in the city. So they make a kind of lecture in front of other citizens to teach what they are doing, what is the value of the resources in this city and etc. etc. And then I think it was a very good process to let people involved in this program of watching their own place and knowing their own place and becoming a kind of interpreter of that place, of their places.
Because today we don't have a traditional type of prijenos znanja sa starih na mlađe, kako se to like where family in the village, families were gathered around the fire, let's say, in the evening, and the oldest one will talk about his experiences, and this story goes from generation to generation. But today this is cut, this is dispersed. So you have today that's why this program is very important, because we have some older people who don't have to tell story to anyone, and people don't know about these stories which are as important as the monument itself. So that's why the visitor center should be important to gather people that those people can transgress their experiences to younger generation.
I see.
Yeah.
I think, in the case of Japan, if the community who still have a festival, annual festival, the festival play a role of this kind of teaching the teaching knowledge from elder generation to younger generation. So because the festival always distribute different role to different peoples, and everybody can participate into the festival with one specific role. And then this role is always, there's no text, so it's always taught from elder elder generation to younger generation, and then preparation of the festival is always much longer than the festival itself. It's totally integrated in as a part of the daily life, and then they learn the skills to perform, to play instruments, musical instruments for festivals, etc., etc. So this is festival is creating a kind of teaching and learning environment for people, and then this is I think is also another important quality of public space. So the good public space is where people can teach and learn mutually. And when people are learning, they become very modest and very open-minded. And when people are teaching, they become very responsible and very, how to say, yeah. So I think that this relationship is something missing in the public space, which is totally swallowed in the commercial activities.
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, yeah.
Another question.
Yes.
I think, yeah,